Welcome to this week's episode of Inside the Headset presented by Coach Com. This week, we sit down with Dominique Bowman, the defensive back coach at Temple. In this conversation, Coach Bowman discusses his approach to interviews, how he got an early start in the profession, and how he used social media to build his reputation. But first, a word from Coach Com.
Deuce left, check with me. If they're in quarters match, we're going to Pittsburgh or Ohio.
They're in zero.
Let's go Hippo, Seattle, wide choice. If we call the protection right, it's 6.
When a play call is the difference between winning and losing, your headset choice could be your most important decision. When the call counts, CoachCom is the only choice for clear, dependable communication. Visit CoachCom.com for more info.
We got it, guys. Good job.
Now, let's get inside the headset with Coach Bowman.
Coach Bowman, what's up, brother? How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. Always a good day when I get to holler at you, man. I feel like I'm always blowing your phone up at the end of every season trying to get you to speak for me, so it's nice to talk to you outside of that zone a little bit.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Glad to be here, bro. Thank you.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Well, hey, let's go ahead and dive into this thing, man. Every time we have a podcast, the first question we like to ask is, when did you decide you want to be a part of this great profession? What was that kind of defining moment?
Yeah, so when I got done playing, I had no idea what I wanted to do. So, again, Anthony Jones was the head coach at Cordova High School. He's now the running back coach at USC. He was the head coach at Cordova High School. I was driving by one day to my old high school and walked back in the back of the school, and they was working out. And he asked me if I wanted to coach. And, I kind of started helping out the DBs, and the rest is history. I just fell in love with it, and I told myself I didn't want to do anything the rest of my life, So that's kind of how I got going and got started.
Yeah. It was doing a little homework. I saw something interesting. You kind of got a little a cheat of a start in comparison to a lot of guys. Not anything that you didn't do on your own, but your head coach as a player in college at Lambeth University was Hugh Freeze. Linebackers coach was Tom Allen, who was longtime head coach at Indiana, current DC at Penn State. You talk about these guys you ran into back at Cordova once you got done playing. One of them's at USC, as you mentioned. The other one's at Ohio State. Ohio State. Ohio. Yeah, it's just like you just kind of look around and early on just been exposed to some of these who's who of the game right now. Just to be able to kind of be around them and not even realize the stature that they'll be holding and that they held at the time.
Yeah, that college staff I had was different. At one point, Arkeo was our line coach. Grant Hurd was our wideouts coach. Hugh Freeze was the head coach, and Tom Allen was the DC and the linebacker coach. So those guys changed my life. I didn't know I wanted to be a coach. My father is my biggest mentor in my life, but Tom Allen, Hugh Freeze was tremendous in developing an inner city kid from Memphis. So I knew that how those guys touched my life. I wanted to find a way to touch other kids' lives. And obviously, Anthony Jones and Locke, us being together in that same staff, me being the D coordinator at one point, and Locke being the OC and Jones being the head coach, we bounced ideas off each other and we grew together in the profession. So, that staff was crazy, and that movie about this staff would be unbelievable one day. But it was a good experience.
Yeah, man, that's kind of crazy to think that just in that short period of time you got to be around some of the really good guys in the business today. And so you dove in, you watched the DB drill. Next thing you know, you're the DB's coach, but very quickly you become the defensive coordinator. Within a year of playing ball, you're calling a whole half of the a whole segment of a game. How did that come about, and how did you prepare yourself for a role that quickly?
It was by default, honestly. So the D coordinator we had some issues and some medical problems, and Anthony Jones called me out one day. He's like, "Man, look, him and Coach Locke, they was like, let the young guy call it." At the time, I wasn't ready. But what I did, Tom Allen was the linebacker coach at Ole Miss at the time, and I drove down to Ole Miss every single weekend for the whole entire offseason. And I just learned the basics. Just what's a 3 technique? What's a 2-eye? What's a shade? What's odd? What's even? What's quarter? What's middle field close? And I just I had the ABC football, and I just had a small system and scheme, about 5 or 6 calls, and I went into the season with that deal, and it was the rest of history. into it. I fell in love with it, the X and O part of it. I didn't know I loved it that much until I started studying it. Just YouTube, driving around the country, talking to guys, and that's kind of how I kind of got up to speed with just the coordinator piece.
Yeah, man, it's funny when you reflect. Just looking at yourself right now at Temple, when you go back and probably realize how much ball you didn't know, and you probably thought, coming out of college, you think you knew it all, seen it all, done it all as a player, and then you get into the profession, man, and you realize, man, you hadn't even begun to tap into to what you can do and all those kind of things, man. So that's awesome to see your growth, from just trying to find out how to line up the front to now just operating at a high level.
That's right.
And so you get the opportunity at Cordova, you make the transition to defensive coordinator, learn a lot about ball, and then a lot of guys, they want to see how to get into the business, whether that is at the high school level, collegiate level, professional level. You kind of check the box on the high school level. What made you decide to transition to Arkansas Monticello? How did that come about? And, what made you confident to go take that job?
Yeah, I had no idea I wanted to coach college football at all. I did not. So in the springtime, we had some really good players. So one of my players was Quinn Bohanna. He's a defensive tackle for the Tennessee Titans. I get a phone call from a Kentucky phone number. It was DJ Elliott, right? At the time, he was a D coordinator in Kentucky. He said, "Hey, Coach Bowman, I'm DJ Elliott. I'm come down to see you guys this weekend. For practice." I'm like, "Okay, cool." He comes down and he sits in the meetings, right? I'm running the defense unit. He watched me on the field coaching, and afterwards he said, "Hey, man, you thought about coaching college?" And I was like, "No, I didn't know how much money they made. I didn't know." And so we kind of built a relationship. He said, "Well, I got a guy who's looking for a DB coach, and not gonna pay much. His name is Mitchell Pate. He was at Florida State as a GA or whatever back in the day, and he's a DC at Arkansas Monticello." I'm like, "Yeah, I interview." So I get in my car, I drive down to Arkansas Monticello. Didn't know how to interview. I just know, once I get going, I'm coaching. Go down and interview for the job. I get the job, making $27,000. So living in my car, staying in the offices. Just not knowing whatever. But that's kind of how I got in. So DJ Elliott is a good friend of mine to this day. He's kind of one who gave me the jump start to even thinking about getting into college.
Yeah. I love that you kind of did talk about that. Obviously, the podcast, we love to hear your story, but we also want to find these nuggets that can help some of these young coaches that are navigating a profession and are in situations like yourself. They want to get into the collegiate game, but they might already have a high school job. My first job in college was very similar. I was coaching high school ball. I'm here in Texas, so I was making well over $50,000 a year. Not saying that's rich, but that was good money to me then. And then my first opportunity and only opportunity to get into college was going to be about an 80 to 85% pay cut. And that's a tough decision to have. That's a tough decision to make. So just being real, since you kind of brought up the numbers aspect, how when you look at that situation and you say, okay, man, I'm gonna have to maybe sleep under the desk a couple nights and crash in the car. How do you make that decision and trust that things are going to work out?
Yeah, I'm a confident guy. And I spoke with some guys. At the time, DJ Elliott was a huge mentor of mine. Derek Ansley, Shadon Brown, all those guys was telling me like, "Hey, you gonna be you can do it." Just And so once you get that push from your peers and people telling you like, "Listen, just you go better do it." And you believe in yourself. You work hard at it, and you be confident. And every single day you go in, and you give it all you have, and you got to bet on yourself. That's what I did. I never GA'd. Like, so when I got DMs and Twitter messages about, "Coach, should I GA? Should I be an analyst?" I've never. My story is completely different.
Yeah.
I didn't coach high school ball very long at all. Right. 2 seasons. And went to Monticello, and so I've never GA'd. I never restricted earnings, anything like that. So once I got in, the networking piece was huge for me. I want to get ahead of myself, but I never forget. I was on the phone with Shadon Brown. He was a defensive back coach at Orem at the time. We were talking some football at the Memphis Mega Camp, and he was like, "Look, you didn't play in NFL. You didn't play Power 5. Nobody's coming to get a D2 DB coach for Arkansas Monticello if they don't know who you are." So I started to post my drills. Right, I started to post my drills. and I started to post different coaching techniques on social media just to get guys to double like it or retweet it or whatever. And then my following started to grow, and then people started like, "Who's this DB coach from Monticello? He posts some good things. He taught us some good terminology." You know, that's kind of how my network grew.
Yeah.
And then I know my name. So
yeah, that's great advice, man. Just trying to find a way to put yourself out there, networking in the new world. To be brutally honest with you, obviously shaking hands and stuff at the convention and clinics and stuff like that is always great. But we do live in this new world with the social media and being able to kind of put your product out there, elevate your student athletes and all that kind of stuff on that platform is huge. Now, I do like to ask, because this is around the time I got to begin to know you. Obviously you had these awesome drills and all this kind of stuff, but that probably wasn't all the stuff you were doing at Lambeth. That wasn't all the stuff that you had figured out. So how were you developing as a coach? Because you're still 3 years. You're still 3 years in the profession, 4 years in the profession. So how were you making sure you were sharpening your tools and learning this good stuff?
There's a lot of studying, and I go listen to different guys talk ball and different things. And honestly, Mario, man, it's in my opinion, and I want to sound arrogant and cocky, but I don't know how I know some of the stuff I know. It's like a passion, in my opinion. Once I get the coaching, it comes out. A lot of guys ask me, "What did you say?" I don't remember what I said or how I broke it down or small intricate details of what I said, but I just do. Just sharpen my tools, just talking to different guys, watching things I would do, what I wouldn't do, if it makes sense to me, or if it didn't make sense to me. And, just baptism by fire. I got thrown in the fire fast. Walking in to Monticello, I had to coach all 5 of the guys. All 5 of them, here you go. So that's a nickel, that's 2 safeties and 2 corners off the bat, And so I had to understand the run fish fast. It was an odd team, so I had to understand the run fish fast and, and I mean, to be honest with you, like guys wasn't just answering the phone either. Like, "Hey, let me help you out. Let's hop on a Zoom." Doing that, so I was wearing guys out, and a couple of guys would reach back out to me and talk to me when they had time. But a lot of studying, a lot of reading, a lot of drawing on a mark on napkins, just trying to understand it. So it was a great journey. It was different, but it was good.
Yeah. You kind of made the point of, when you transition to defensive coordinator at the high school level, how you just went and you learned, 4 eyes and, the fronts, linebacker, playing all that kind of stuff. Just recalling my journey, I remember getting into that collegiate room and, I didn't have a class anymore. I wasn't teaching 75% of the day, just doing football, 25%. It was football 100% of the day. I'm watching film, till my eyes bleed. I'm up there at 6 a.m. I'm leaving at midnight. Getting acclimated to that grind, I know you pretty well, probably wasn't the hard part, but as far as like all of a sudden just how much ball that you're taking in, with your defensive coordinator, what was that transition like, just being able to really see that there's a lot more ball out there to learn?
It was tough for me, honestly. Mitchell Pate, who he's out of it now, man, he pushed me hard. Yeah. And I text him all the time sometimes, like, bro, like, that's one of the toughest interviews I've been on, Division II. Mitchell Pate, Arkansas Monticello, one of the most thorough interviews, and he was a ball coach. I mean, he'll put us on a board and make us learn the entire scheme to 1, 2 in the morning. Like our lives are burning, and we're in there talking ball, and he wouldn't let you leave until you got it all done. I'm like, bro, can I go back to Cordova High School? You know what I mean? Oh, yeah. And so looking back on it, I mean, I learned so much football in my first year in college at Arkansas Monticello. I mean, I learned so much ball. I learned odd, even, simulated pressures. I mean, he just threw it all at me and made me learn it. Like, you're not going home. We lived in a dorm, me and him together. We stayed in the same apartment building. Like, we're not going home until you learn this, until you get it right. He'll keep quizzing me over and over again, and it was bad. I wanted to leave. I'm like, I'm taking a $45 pay cut to do this, and I'm tired. Living in my car, sleeping in a small dorm.
Yeah.
But it was a different. Like, you think you know football until you get around football. With guys around you know football. It's so much going into it. A high school coach, you got 2 hours a day.
Yeah.
You play a ring, you do a little whatever, and you go to the field and you go home. Like, when I got to college, the hours was crazy, and just the time that we put in, it kind of made me, be a better coach.
Mm-hmm.
Either it's one or two things like the military. It's going to make you or break you, and some guys some guys got out of it. I was one of the guys that stuck to it. But once I got it, it all came together like a puzzle, So like riding a bike. Once it clicked and the switch clicked on me, I understood how everything fit together. It was just terminology at that point, you know. So I commend. Mr. Pay was huge in my development, and just knowing football, just knowing ball, and him throwing all at me and making me grab what I can grab, and quizzing me over and over again.
One last thing I want to hit on with the Arkansas Monticello spot is you mentioned they made you go interview. All right, and at this point in time, the only job that you've had, you just rolled by the high school and you walked out of there with a job. You know, you didn't probably do a formal interview or anything like that. So just, you know, those opportunities are important because they don't come very often, and you get to learn a lot. As you know, although you're there to get a job, you also get to learn a lot about the interview process. How were you able to earn that job? You know, how were you able to display that your knowledge and give them confidence to hire you?
Yeah, so I tell guys all the time, Mario, I've interviewed for every single job I've gotten.
Oh, wow.
I ain't been lucky enough to just get a job. Every one of them.
Right.
You know what I mean? Coach High School wasn't formal, but he sat me down there and talked to me. You know, I never just walked in and said, you got the job, come on. But so Mr. Page sent me an email the night before. He was like, here's the interview questions. I'm scrambling. I'm like, wow, what the crap? You know, he was like, teach me your day one install. All right, your teaching philosophy. And one thing that stuck with me, he asked me, your individual philosophy. And it was like, teach me our scheme. And so what he did was he went up on the board and he drew up the scheme, not just the back end, the whole deal. And I had to try to teach it back to him. You know, but one thing I was good at, I'm a very detailed guy. As a player, I was really detailed. And especially, I thought at that time, going into Monticello, I was a master at my position. I can coach DB, yes. I can coach the corner at Monticello. I can coach the safety at Monticello. So I kind of understood the in and out of the DB play, of the basic of what I was doing. And so when I went into it, I didn't try to teach him Nick Saban's scheme.
Yeah.
When he asked me, teach me your scheme, I told him in detail what I knew.
Yeah.
And I think on interviews, some guys get confused. They go in, they try to teach somebody else's scheme. No, they want to know how good you teach. It was some basic quarters, 4-2-5, just true country quarters, but it was in detail, and it's how I understood it, right? And so I was passionate about that. I was detailed about that, about what I knew, right? And so that was kind of, you know, that was good. And then he asked me about my recruiting philosophy. I think that's what got him, you know, because at the time I have never recruited a player in my life.
Yeah.
Right? But I've been recruited before. And when he asked me this question, Mario, it stuck with me. And he said, hey, what is your recruiting philosophy? I'm on the spot. Like Jeopardy, ding, ding, waiting. And I'm like, I want to recruit to make an impact and not just contact. And that stuck with me because I knew Tom Allen and those guys, when they recruited me, would call me and ask me about, hey, how's your mom? How was your day? Like, hey, what you eat for dinner? You know, they wouldn't just call, you know what I mean? And so it was being impactful and not just contacting. Some coaches think you call a kid so many times, are you going to go to your, no, you know, it's like dating a lady. You call somebody 100 times, they'll get tired of you calling them. Yeah. You know what I mean? But if you call them, you be impactful. So I think that answer I gave those guys was one that kind of pushed me over the top. And I also think me never being on an interview, no PowerPoint presentation, no booklet at the time, no nothing. You know what I mean? That's because people see all the stuff I have now. I didn't have any of that. I had a grease board, a marker, and I had my brain. Yeah. You know, and they put me on the board, and I was drawing for 3 or 4 days just trying to get myself sharp. You know what I mean? But it was nerve-wracking. I would say that's probably the toughest interview. I've been to the SEC, I've been to AFCA, I've been to Sun Belt. That's the toughest interview I've ever been on.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
By far.
That's great. You got that opportunity early, and it's interesting. You know, if you go back, we've done over 300 of these episodes, man, over the years, and I'm thinking about the number of times I've had guys that are on a podcast, and they say, "Man, I have not interviewed one time my whole career," and these guys are 60 years old, and then you I've only been on one, and so every job that you've ever had, you've had that opportunity to go and interview. So I probably will dig back at the interview question here over time, because I think that's something that a lot of people walk into. Obviously, interviews are built to help you get the job or not. But the thing that's really weird about it is, you know, if I'm going to go get a waiter job at, you know, Red Lobster or something like that, then it's going to be pretty standard in terms of what I can expect when I walk in. But, you know, I'm sure you got some stark differences in a lot of the interviews that you've been on over the years, where some are a little more formal, some are a little bit more intense, things like that. So I love to kind of dig in as we kind of roll through these stops here. But let's do that. Let's go ahead in 2017, 2018. You transitioned to the defensive backs coach at UT Martin.
Yeah.
Once again, just always want to ask, how did that job come about? You can speak on the interview process a little bit, and why was this something you went after?
Yeah, so Jason Simpson, who is a huge mentor, father figure, best friend, my guy, we talk all the time, was the head coach at Tennessee Martin. And I mean, that's the football factory for coaching. That's coaching one-on-one, right? So me being from Memphis, was 2 hours from Martin, Tennessee, they had a defensive back spot open. Trey Scott was my guy. He worked at UT Martin, and I had the Wolves go out to Simpson. I had everybody in the country call Coach Simpson. Hugh Freeze, Tom Allen, DJ Elliott. I mean, everybody called. He called me back. He said, "Hey, listen, I've been getting a ton of phone calls from you. Would love to bring you up to interview." And I go up, and now I'm kind of comfortable. I've been on the interview already, so I go in over prepared. Right. This interview wasn't as extensive as the Monticello interview. So Jordan Hankins, who's the DC at Memphis, was the DC at Martin at the time. We go in and, just go at this time, go through my drill tape. Like, he wanted to hear me. He wanted to talk about my individual, how I can develop guys, which if you were a secondary coach, and I tell young guys all the time, when you go on an interview, if you're interviewing for the corner job, the safety job, linebacker job, you have to be a master at that position. What does that look like? What does that mean? If they ask you any kind of question about secondary play, you should be able to answer it. I'm not saying how to block duo, but you should be able to say, hey, how do you teach off man? How do you teach press man? How do you teach hard cover two? How do you teach depth and divide? Like, you should be able to do that. And that interview was more of a positional interview, which was good. And so I got into detail with that. And so Jordan Hankins hired me. Him and Jason Simpson hired me as the secondary coach, the corners coach previously. My first season at Tennessee Martin, which, being at Martin, I want to get ahead of myself, was the best in terms of you learn how to be a football coach ever with Jason Simpson. Like, you want to go be a football coach, you get on at UT Martin and you will be a better coach.
Yeah, man. He was on I think maybe a couple of weeks ago, man. It's just mind blowing. Like, I looked up and it had been an hour and 10 minutes already in the podcast. I'm like, man, we got to get off. I could talk to you all day. Just genuinely good dude. And we actually talked about the interview process on there with him, and I can't quite remember that, but that's great. You got that opportunity early. Now, one of the things that was interesting is, correct me if I'm wrong here, I saw that you had the title as well as assistant head coach, which once again, you just kind of look. You're 5 years in at this point in time, got assistant head coaching title, trajectory is just consistently moving upward. Having that title, I know sometimes, I'm just being honest here, sometimes it's nothing more than just something that sits next to your name. Maybe there was a little extra cash on your paycheck, but in other instances, you hold some responsibilities. What was this situation like for you?
Yeah, so I was the assistant head coach. So Coach Simpson weekly would meet with me about the budget, and he'll sit me down, and I'll sit in those meetings with him. The AD talk. I'm sitting in with the AD and him speaking. He was really trying to develop me. And I think I got that title initially because of my relationship with all the players on offense, defense, and he saw that, right? He saw how all the players gravitated to my offense or was around me, and he felt like that I had the things to be a head coach. I had no idea about managing a roster and, FCS, just scholarships, numbers, and cutting it down. And he brought me in and set me in every one of those meetings with him. If it was him doing the budget or him doing the roster management on that level, him interviewing strength coaches, him interviewing the O-line coach, him interviewing the whatever coach, I was always a part of those processes. And so I will say for me at Martin, it was not just a title. I was really learning. And, so now looking back on those things, even understand the academic piece of it, like some guys go right into the Power 5 and never have an opportunity to even look at those kind of things, So he challenged me to learn those things. He'll ask me questions. Hey, Bo, what do you think? And he may know the answer to it, but he wants to see what I'm going to say. So that development by Coach Simpson and Martin was huge. And that for me with that title, I was really the assistant head coach, and I was really, privy to those conversations he was having as the head coach.
Well, we'll come back to UT Martin because you do come back to UT Martin here shortly. But you take a brief stint as the secondary coach, but co-defensive coordinator there at Austin Peay in 2019, 2020. Talk to us a little bit about the transition there. Am I correct? Are they in the same conference?
Yeah.
Same conference, right? Yeah. So kind of a move to a same conference opponent. Obviously, you get the opportunity to be a co-defensive coordinator. You interviewed at every last one of your jobs, as you said. So how did this interview go? How did the job come about? And talk about your time there.
Well, you helped me with this, Mario. So I had, I reached out to you, and I did the first ever drills and skills.
Yeah.
Right. First ever. So I had no idea who Marcus Husted was. I had no idea whatever. So he see me at the convention on the grass, just coaching. I walk off the field. I'm sweating. This guy in all black, didn't have a logo on. He walks up to me. He say, "Hey, what I got to do to get you out of Tennessee Martin?" I said, where you coach at? He's up the head coach at Austin Peay. He said, "What do you do there? How much you make?" I told him, and he said, "Oh, we can do better than that." And I said, "Well, I want to be a defensive coordinator." He said, "We have a coordinator spot open and a DB spot open. Come down to Clarksville." I leave that night, and I go back to Memphis and drive to Austin Peay, right? I'm going to the interview as interviewing for the DB spot, right? But I knew if I got an opportunity to get in front of this guy and he let me do my stuff, that I can get in the coordinator role, right? That's me driving up thinking that. So I go in and he sits down and he say, "Show me what you got." So I don't go in and say, "Hey, here's press man, here's this, here's that." I go into my defensive coordinator philosophy and just the overall big picture. I'm like, "Hey, what's going to happen? What's the worst you can say? No, don't talk about it." So I started talking about it. He said, keep going. So I went in interviewing for the corner job, and I left out as one of the play callers as a defensive coordinator, and so when I called Coach Simpson, he was like, "What? No brainer. Like, dude, like, go. Like, making that kind of money, he didn't have a spot for me. And I was going to be the coordinator in Martin eventually, but, it didn't work out the way it worked out.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I got. So I tell you, the convention, he saw me walk on the field, and that kind of catapulted me to me being my first opportunity to be a co-coordinator. It's crazy, but it's how it happened.
When we get done with this podcast, just make sure to hold on so I can get my commission a little bit for that. That's awesome, man. That's
twice. When you hit Arkansas twice.
Yeah, man. Well, that's what it's all about, brother. I actually I recorded a podcast yesterday and heard a similar story. Dude speaking at the convention, that was kind of the opportunity to interview. So I think that's important. Number one, as a coach, you get to the level where you feel confident enough to get in front of your other peers and go and speak and fill a room up and do some stuff that I know you've done for me before. Man, hit me up because you're always interviewing, man. Yeah, because you were just trying to get some decent DBs backpedaling for you. Next thing you know, you're on a job interview, and that's huge, man.
Absolutely, man. It was big time for me, man.
Yeah, good, man. Well, that's great to hear, and I look forward to hearing this other story here shortly. Now, what were some of the learning curves as a co-defensive coordinator? Now, let me interject here real quick. 2019 OVC championships, first time since 1977. Led the conference in INTs, 15 of them. 11th in the FCS in defensive TDs. 12th in total defense. 13th in turnovers gained. 14th in defensive pass efficiency. 15th in scoring defense. So not only did you get there and just get a job, but you guys excelled defensively. So what was that experience like as a first-time coordinator? Still, I respect that as co-defensive coordinator, but what was kind of, the things that changed a little bit for you as a DB coach?
So I worked with some great dudes. Mark Powell was the co-DC with me.
Yeah.
Keith Scott was my Nichols coach. I coached the secondary. Kevon Beckwith was my D-line coach at Temple. Now I was the D-line coach. And also Marquise Lovins, who's at Arkansas State. So our defensive staff was great. What was crazy is the first week and a half, it was just me and Mark Powell.
Okay.
And we had no idea what we were going to run and whatever. So we just went in the room, locked ourselves in, and we just started to build a defense, right? And so I kind of built the back end, the coverages. He put in the blitzes. We just married the names together. What do you want to call it? What do you want to call it? What do you want to call it? Neither one of us has never been a coordinator before. He was a GA at Mississippi State, and he's now at Austin Peay. I had been a DB coach at Tennessee Martin. And Marcus Hunter told us to go in and figure it out, right?
Yeah.
And so we hired Coach Scott. He had been a coordinator before. He comes in, coaching the nickel, and he was tremendous with our development. And our staff was great. And, I mean, the learning curve was, you know, being able to work with other people, you know, being able to get other guys ideas, you know. And so what I learned at Austin P was this. If a guy have an opinion, let him have his opinion, but always make sure you have a why. You know, I can listen to whatever. If you tell me, hey, coach, let's play it this way, give me a why. And I wasn't like that at first. I was like, what? This is my way or no way. And I learned that being with those guys, them being my brothers and being in my wedding and all that, they kind of brought me down. Like, hey, Bo, you got to do A, B, C, D. You can't be that. You can't do this. So Austin P was great for me. You know, me being around that group of guys was the best thing that happened to my career.
Well, it propels you into that coordinator role that you were seeking there at UT Martin. You do return in 2020 and 2021 as the co-DC defensive backs coach. Once again, you said you interviewed for every last one of your jobs. Did you have to go back and interview for this?
Not this one. Not this one.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of figured it played out that way.
So it was, we won a championship in 2019, right? We was top 5 team in the country, and COVID hit, right? So when COVID hit, we only played 3 games in the COVID. It's crazy. We played Cincinnati, who was that year lost to Alabama in the playoffs. We played Pittsburgh, who was also really good. We played UCA, which is the first game. We played 3 games, and our season was over. They ended up hiring Scotty Walden, who's a good friend of mine, good guy. He brought his own guys in, so I was out for probably a week or 2.
Yeah.
Coach Simpson had an opening. Again, him being my guy, he brings me back to Martin. I was only at Martin for like a month, though, you know, so I didn't really, you know, coach anything. I was just there for a month.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that that stop was so short just because the way COVID threw everything around a little bit there. But you were in a position to return. So now let's go ahead and hop on into what happens in 2021. Obviously, you go and take that role. You're there for a month. Then all of a sudden, you end up at Marshall. How did that whole thing come about?
Yeah, so during COVID, I was doing a bunch of Zooms. Mm-hmm. I was bored in the house. I was just Zooming. So this particular Zoom was for the Alabama Minority Coach Association, right? I'm on the Zoom. I'm speaking, and I'm just in the bottom right-hand corner. I see all these names pop in. Charles Huff, boom, 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 all these names popping in. So Charles Huff hops on the Zoom, right? I'm going through my deal. I think one of the high school coaches, I hop on this guy, Dominique, Bowman speaking. I heard he's pretty good. So Huff hops on, and he heard me doing the Zoom. And I took the West Kentucky defensive back job. I accepted the job. U-Haul packed up, driving to Kentucky to sign my contract on Thursday. I get a phone call from, hey, how you doing? It's Charles Huff. I'm like, I'm doing good. Hey, you got a minute? I mean, yeah, I'm driving. Where you driving to? Well, I'm actually driving to take the West Kentucky job. And he say, pull over. Don't take the job. Pull over. I pull over. And he like, listen. He started spilling me, recruiting me. I saw you speak. I'm on the front of the contract. Alabama, I can get, just, he's a great recruiter. Like, he just owed me. He talked to me. He talked to Coach Simpson. So I went to Marshall. I got on the Marshall off a Zoom. When I sat in an interview, he saw me on the Zoom, and he told me that was my interview, right? Yeah. And so he hired me at Marshall, and that's my guy. Rest is history.
Yeah, so and I will definitely give you the leeway to choose not to dive into it if you don't want to. Some of these tough conversations that happen in the profession. Sometimes you're on the wrong end of it. Doesn't matter who you are. You're going to be on the wrong end at some point in time. But sometimes you're in these positions where you might have to walk out on a job to take a better one. You're in a position where you might be in the U-Haul truck headed to that job and something else comes up. How once again, feel free to not answer this if you don't want to, but how did that conversation go with Western Kentucky to just let them know you're taking something different?
So Maurice Cohn was the defense coordinator, bro. He was a great guy. Great guy. I called him, and, he was supportive. He understood. At the time, to be honest with you, the reason I took the job because he was in a frame of a contract. It was a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It was a little bit more money, but $10,000, $15,000 more. But he was year one of a contract. And all the mentors I spoke to, Coach Allen, Coach Free, all the guys like, man, if you can be in the front of the contract, you know, you need to. And at that time, and they ended up beating us, but he was on the back end of his contract, and it was like in my mind, like, you know, like the front end of the contract with a new, fresh, young head coach. You know, what's the worst that can happen? We at least got 2 years. You know,
right.
And so it's kind of what my decision making was going to the Marshall, and then I Coach Huff, I had just knew about him on the recruiting trail, and I knew he had the Alabama, you know, stamp, and I mean, he's one of the best head coaches in the country. He's great. He does a great job, but I was fortunate enough to work with him and Lance Guidry. Mm-hmm. And so that was a good move for him.
Oh, absolutely. Now, this is I guess technically the first time since you kind of stepped into that co-DC role where you really you're looking at that front seven, you know, as well as, you know, your back end probably a lot more than you ever have, you know, in that co-DC role. Taking that step, not necessarily back. Obviously, this is a step to the FBS, but taking a step back in terms of not being a co-DC, just back being responsible for your responsibility. I think you were just corners, right?
Yeah.
Just being responsible for your corners. How did just that brief moment of being a DC help you be a better position coach?
I mean, it was to the point. It was a refreshing in terms of the responsibilities.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah,
and like coaching DB, I tell guys all the time, like it's like stealing for me. You know what I mean? Like it's easy for me to do that now. You know, but Lance Guidry was a coordinator, but he's not a coordinator where it's like my way or the highway. So it still was the game planning. We all was game planning, and I was kind of the DB coach, and he was kind of like the D coordinator. And so in terms of how I didn't have to worry about the front as much. You know, it was more, hey, Debo, what do you want to do coverage-wise? You know, we each had a piece of breakdown every week, so I had to present that to him. So it was still a part of the coordinator role with more of the passing game deal. But, you know, going into FBS, I needed to just coach a position first just to, you know, get my feet wet and just see how things go. See it, you know, but honestly, the schematic didn't change. Power is power, you know. Curl flat is curl flat, but, you know, just more or less learning how different coordinators do things. I thought I knew at Austin Peay. I learned so much more from Lance Guidry.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
right.
Like, that guy is the best guy at play recognition I've ever seen in my life. I mean, he can look at a play and we watching the tape and he'll say, the tight end, I mean, he just can see it. I've never seen a guy do it in my life. You know, and that's not a gift of mine.
Yeah.
And I mean, my gift is more of a teaching deal. Like, what's my alignment? What is my stance? Read your keys, trust your eyes. He can see a play and say it's coming and call it out. Like, he is brilliant at that. He can see it's his power. They run a curl flat here. I mean, like, he just see it based upon different things that I can't see. And God didn't give me that ability, you know. And so also understanding and learning how everything fits up based upon what a running back is. I didn't know that at Austin Peay. You know, so me taking a step back in that position and learning even more from Lance Guidry was huge.
Man, that's awesome. That's great to hear that you were able to kind of continue to elevate your game. That is a part of the business. You got to be able to continue to learn, continue to grow. You know, after spending one time in 1 year at Marshall, I'm assuming I'm about to hear another story about the convention, but I know I have you come and speak that year, defensive backs buzz session, standing room only. I couldn't even get in there and watch it very much. But what propelled you into the Arkansas job?
Yeah, so Barry Odom. Barry was a good friend of mine. I knew Barry a little when he was the D coordinator in Memphis, and I was the defensive back coach at Cordova High School. Again, I just go up there every weekend and just help. At that time, high school coaches can run camps, you know, so we can go work camps and get paid back in those days. And this particular time, I went up there and I ran some drills. I didn't know he was watching me, but he was. And so we didn't really stay in contact. I mean, he followed me on Twitter or whatever, but I spoke at the convention in 2021. And nervous is all outdoors. You said standing room on. I go in and I guess I'm assuming I killed it, right? And I walked out of there and Purdue reached out to me, Ole Miss reached out to me, and Arkansas reached out to me, right? And, you know, again, I didn't interview X and O. Barry said, I seen you do it. I watched you coach on the grad. I heard you speak at the convention. I want you. It came down to, being close to Memphis and me having a relationship with Barry Odom. And, obviously I chose to go to Arkansas.
Well, that's awesome to hear, man. And what's funny is as soon as you started that story off, I didn't remember that he was the DC at the time. But the interesting part about that is, I said I just did a podcast the other day with somebody, and it was Brennan Marion, and his story was he was talking QBs, and Coach Odom was in there watching quarterback play. So that's just, I need to get him on the podcast. Apparently, he does a good job of coming and searching talents there at the AFCA convention. But that's pretty awesome to hear. So now, regardless, man, I know a lot. We got a lot of great coaches at every single level in this game of football. I'm talking about middle school to the professional level. You got class acts at every level, and everybody's goals are different. Some guys, man, couldn't be more happier than coaching at a high school, or more happier than maybe being off the field at the NFL level. But I know a lot of guys at the collegiate level, man, they want to make it to that P5, that SEC type level. So now you're on the big stage. What was the difference in terms of how you coach, how you approach, or anything, at all?
Well, the recruiting is different. I mean, it's intense. Is you in a war, and the SEC is a war every single day in the recruiting. I mean, like, you wake up at 7 o'clock, you grab your work phone, you text a kid before you go eat, before you brush your teeth. And that was huge. That was different for me. But I'm a competitor, so I can compete with that. In terms of the football aspect of it, ball don't change, Mario. What I mean? Yep. Yeah, Monticello, we probably have 300 people in the crowd. You have 90,000 in Arkansas, but when you coaching, you don't see that.
No, doesn't matter. Yeah.
So in terms of that, obviously the pay was different, but in terms of just the ball piece of it, and just the war room is a war room. You sitting in a room with 5 guys, no different. You sitting in a room with 5 or 6 guys at Monticello. Right. It's just the walls say Arkansas, it don't say Monticello. The only thing that feels different is game day, with just the atmosphere. But it was great. I loved it.
And once again, we're kind of moving towards the where you are now currently. In 2023, you land your current stop as a corners coach at Temple. Before taking, I guess, the entire back end, if that's correct, is that kind of how it played out?
Yeah. So Arkansas, it was a defensive staff change, right? So the staff changed Arkansas. Yeah. So full circle, DJ Elliott became the defensive coordinator at Temple. I remember I talked about DJ Elliott when I was at Cordova High School. Right. He the one who kind of got me into college, right? He calls me up and he hires me as the corners coach initially. My first season as last year was corners coach, and even then he didn't want to interview me, but I wanted him to interview me. And this is why, Mario, and I tell young guys all the time, I just spoke with a coach last night on the phone about this. If a guy doesn't interview you for a job, right? Just say I'm a barber, I'm cutting your hair. If you've never seen me cut anybody's hair, like, why would you trust me to cut your hair? You know what I mean? Yeah. And so I wanted Stan Drake and DJ to just hop on a Zoom and let me coach, because I may be a good dude, I may be a good recruiter, but it's 3rd and 5, we got unbalanced. Can I get him out? Can I help you out? Can I draw it up within 3 plays if we're not getting a first down? I got 3 plays to get it drawn up. And he didn't interview me, so now he don't know if I can do it or not. Yeah. So I want guys to know what they're going to get in every single aspect. You know what I mean? So I forced the interview at Temple, right? We hop on a Zoom, we interview. Drake says a no-brainer, like, wow, And so I go to Temple last season as the corners coach. And this past offseason, I was promoted. So to secondary coach.
Yeah. And so now you're responsible for that whole back end. Now, just talk to me a little bit, because to be honest, I in my coaching career kind of dealt with the same deal, and to me there was no difference. But I really feel like fundamentally, I played corner in high school. I played corner my first year in college. I don't know if I've ever told you that, but I ended up being an offensive guy throughout as a coach and back into my college career. And I did the inside receiver, outside receiver thing a little bit, and I coach all 4 or 5 of the receivers in other instances. To me, it wasn't a big difference, fundamentally in terms of inside or outside receiver coach. Now I do know as a player, there's a big difference between the corner and the safety. There's definitely a lot of similarities, but there's some major differences. When you make that type of transition, like how do you view it as just coaching corners versus coaching the whole back end?
It's a completely different position. It is. Corner is more of a technical position in terms of technique. Obviously, if you're a corner, you're playing man, you're playing some kind of cloud, you're playing some kind of quarters, you're playing a deep third, right?
Yeah.
So it's more of a technique position. And safety is more schematically, understanding the run fits, if it's odd or even, what do you fit, what's going on in front of you, as well as if it's middle field closed or middle field open. You have to be a really good coach to coach the whole back end. Because obviously you all meet together, but you got to be able to have a dialogue with each position about the different things. And if you're not and a lot of times you see linebacker coaches go back and coach the safety because of the run fits, or a DB guy don't know to understand the fits, right?
Right.
But if you're fortunate to have a secondary guy who understands the run fits, right? And I would think I'm that type of guy that it makes it cleaner, because now I'm a DB guy, right, at heart. But if you don't stop that, I'd rather for us to get thrown for 18,000 yards to been rushed on, right? You don't hear it from a secondary guy, right? So obviously it is two different positions. In order to coach it, the whole unit, I think you got to have somebody who understands both really, really well.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, a linebacker coach goes back there, he thinks about the run. Like, get the safety down there. You get a true DB guy, he want to drop 8 every time. If you get a guy that understands both, like I've been a coordinator at Austin P, and I've learned from good coordinators. Delaney Guidry is a DB guy, but he also is a stop the run type of guy first. I think those lessons helped me understand, and I think Stan Drayton saw that in me and wanted to allow me to coach the whole secondary.
Well, Coach, that's awesome. Congratulations on that. I know you'll do a fantastic job, as you've always done with all four of those guys on the back end. Before we hop out on the close here, Coach, definitely want to talk about our time together in the 2020 AFCA 35 under 35 Coaches Leadership Institute. I know you're a part of that program. I have no shame in saying how proud I am of the guys that we've been able to get in and what they've been able to do with their careers to propel themselves, which helps propel that program. And you are a huge part of our success in that deal. What did that program mean to you, and why should guys apply?
Man, that was game changer for me, man. Like just being able to sit in that room and you look around that room and there was so many guys in my class who's Power 5, who's head coaches, who FBS. And we still keep in contact. So relationships you cannot take for granted. And just the knowledge of hearing ADs speak and agents speak and different things. Like you think but it's a long process. But I was a sponge, and it went by like 30 minutes, I felt like. I wanted to keep going.
Yeah.
And those guys still check me to this day about different opportunities. We stay in touch. Our class is kind of a tight class. And, that thing was huge. I mean, it needs to be on 39, so we need to have a 40 on the 40 soon. But
yeah,
it was good, man. I appreciate you for that. And that spearheaded me, because that notoriety and publicity was all over social media. And I mean, that's a badge of honor for you to be on that team, So
for sure,
it was huge.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Well, I appreciate you guys continue to elevate that program, because your success ties a lot into being a part of that program in terms of people who spectate that, man. So I appreciate you guys continue to elevate that program. Now, before I let you go here, Coach, I know you mentioned several times that you blast your social media, with great drills, great content, great things, and just want to give guys the opportunity to make sure, if they're not already following you, to follow you and keep up with your journey. So if you can plug in your social, that'd be great, man.
Yeah, so my Twitter handle, let me see what it is. My Twitter is Bowman85, Bowman 85. And my Instagram is Coach Bowman 85.
Okay, cool, Coach. Well, we'll make sure to link that in the show notes, make it easy for the guys to find you. As always, brother, it's good to connect with you and catch up with you. A lot of stuff I didn't know, which is cool, man, because I feel like I've known you since, I guess, at a UT Martin time frame, somewhere around there, the first time around. So it's good to learn a lot more about you and help a lot of these young guys navigate through the profession, through your journey, because like you said, it's not unique, and I don't think anybody's really is, but yours a little bit more unique than some of the others, been able to hop straight into this thing without doing some of the the quality control and GA type stuff. So I appreciate you pouring that knowledge out, man. I look forward to catching up with you soon, okay?
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate you. Go out.
All right, bro. Later.
CoachComm has been delivering tough headsets for tough teams for more than 31 years. It's why 97% of FBS teams and thousands of high schools across the country rely on CoachComm. Get the best for your team. Visit CoachComm.com for more info.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Inside the Headset, presented by CoachComm. If you'd like to learn more about this week's episode, head over to AFCA.com. There, you can access every episode and find corresponding show notes. Remember, you can catch every episode of Inside the Headset presented by CoachComm on wherever you get your podcasts, including Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. While you're there, we'd love for you to take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Your feedback helps us improve and grow. Keep up with the latest news by following us on social media. Connect with us at Inside the Headset, and remember to tag us when you share your favorite episodes. For more updates on all things AFCA, be sure to follow the @WeAreAFCA social media accounts. If you're not a part of the AFCA community yet, visit AFCA.com to join thousands of NFL, college, and high school coaches nationwide and across the globe. Elevate your coaching game with an AFCA membership. You'll gain exclusive access to the annual AFCA convention, magazine, digital library, and AFCA Insider email. Stay up to date with the latest stories and news on the AFCA website. More than just a convention, the AFCA offers continuous education, guidance, networking, and more. Celebrate the past and shape the future with the AFCA. It's about fostering exceptional coaches who create outstanding teams and even better individuals. Invest in your skills and make a lasting impact today by engaging with the AFCA. Your journey starts here.